Testing. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Sharon, do you want to do the flag salute for us when we do it? Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Paso Robles City Council for March 19th, 2024. If we would then go ahead and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Roden, and then also stay standing for the invocation from Pastor Cole.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father God, we are thankful for the ever-new mercies that you show us each day. We are grateful for your provision and protection. We thank you for firefighters, police officers, and other public safety personnel who serve our community in so many ways. We thank you for our city manager and city staff who daily seek to serve our community wisely and effectively. We thank you for our mayor and city council members who seek the good of all who dwell in our community. We ask your continued blessings of wisdom, strength, and protection to be on all our leaders and public servants. In a world that often seems full of chaos, disorder, brokenness, rancor, and division, we ask for you to remind us daily of your ongoing work of bringing light into darkness, freedom out of bondage, healing into brokenness. We ask for you to continue this work in and through each of us as individuals and as a community. Forgive us of too often failing to love our neighbors as ourselves. We also ask that you grant everyone in tonight's meeting a spirit of humility that seeks to listen more than to speak, to understand as much as to be understood, and to seek the benefit of others as much as our own. In all these matters, we surrender our will to yours, trusting that your providential hand and purpose is always good. Finally, we thank you for Jesus Christ, your Son, the risen hope of all mankind. May we find true peace and hope in him. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Cole. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll call, please?
Councilmember Bausch.
Here.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Roden.
Here.
Councilmember Strong.
Here.
Mayor Hammond.
Here. And then could we have staff introductions, starting with Melissa?
Melissa Boyer, City Clerk, joined by Shauna Howenstein, Civic Engagement Coordinator, and Karen Jackson, IT Technician.
Warren Frace, Community Development Director.
Chris Hewitt, Assistant City Manager.
Ty Lewis, City Manager.
Elizabeth Hull, City Attorney.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, on the heels of staff introduction, just read a brief apology. Mr. Mayor, on the heels of agendized staff introductions, I'd like to offer an apology to all city staff for any comments that I have made to make anyone feel uncomfortable or unappreciated. I do apologize. After our last council meeting, I was invited to meet with Mayor Hammond and City Manager Lewis to discuss the way I treat city employees and staff. It seems that a fellow council member had complained that our city staff takes offense when I use the term staff. Upon probing a little deeper, it seems that the complaint only applies during discussions here on the dais, and then only with regards to the city's paid parking. Thankfully, there were no complaints regarding my day-to-day interaction with city employees. In fact, they said I seemed to be reasonably behaved during all other times. To correct my error, City Manager Lewis noted that to avoid disparaging all our staff, I should begin using the actual names of any employees I may disagree with. However, Since we received our council agenda reports from city staff, I will in all likelihood continue to reference staff from time to time in my remarks. From here on out, unless otherwise duly noted, city staff may console themselves knowing that the staff I refer to is strictly limited to those who prepared the particular and unique staff report that I might happen to be referencing. If anyone is ever in doubt, please reach out. I promise to be nice. Both the mayor and the city manager went to great lengths to assure me that their meeting with me was to ensure that I learned to work together with them to present only a positive image of the city council. They were very clear that the meeting was not at all intended to bring my opposition to the city's paid parking program into alignment with the majority of city council and staff. We went on to discuss how it came to be that the employees who felt threatened by me or by anyone working here were not able to share their feelings directly. It seems that the city does indeed have a robust whistleblower protection policy in place. For every city employee, every staff member, and anyone who seeks city services or conducts any business or approval with the city should rest assured that retaliation or perceived retaliation by the city or any city employee will not be tolerated. If any retaliation is happening now, in the past, or in the future, it should be reported immediately. In closing, as I have said on numerous occasions, I truly believe that the city of Paso Robles has the very best staff that I have ever worked with in my 12 years of public service. I'm very appreciative of their hard work, creativity, dedication, and service. I regret that my words or actions would have ever suggested otherwise. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Chris, for your talk there. And again, apologies, I'm sure, are accepted by staff. Again, it's the council's job to debate and not be personal about anything. So, again, I appreciate the effort. Councilman Gregory.
I'd like to warmly welcome our supervisor, John Pashang, who's in the audience tonight.
Yeah. Thank you, John. All right. Moving on, then we have presentations, and we're going to have it from the SLOCOG, and we have now Annie Bowski and John DeZunio going to give a presentation on their proposed tax increase, I think, that we're talking about.
All right, thank you for having us this evening. My name is Annie Bowski, and I'm here representing SLOCOG along with my colleague, John DeNunzio. We're here to share and get feedback as SLOCOG is working to finalize a draft investment plan for a potential transportation tax measure on the November 2024 ballot. The Local Roads First initiative is devised to generate funding for the county level to fix, repair, and update our transportation needs. And I know many of you on the council are aware of SLOCOG, but I'll share a brief background for those who are not familiar, and Mr. DeNunzio will then review the draft investment plan. As a regional county agency, SLOCOG is comprised of the 7 cities and all county unincorporated areas. SLOCOG actually is overseen by the largest governing board in the county, with a representative from all 7 cities, along with the 5 supervisors who represent the unincorporated voice. As transportation planners, SLOCOG connects communities by working with local jurisdictions and allocating state and federal funding, most of that coming from the gas tax. And just a quick little background on one of SLOCOG's key responsibilities, which is the Regional Transportation Plan. This 23-year outlook projects the transportation needs for the county by identifying projects, estimating population growth, and calculating needed funding. The most recent RTP was approved by the SLOCOG Board of Directors in June of 2023. And based on the county-wide transportation project needs, $4.5 billion was identified in funding needs, and unfortunately, there is only $3.1 billion in project revenue, leaving a $2.3 billion deficit. And so basically, why is there a shortfall? The main component is a shrinking fuel tax. As mentioned, a solid majority of SLOCOG funding comes from federal and state gas tax. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, more cars and more gallons were consumed, which fed the fuel tax and allowed us to maintain our transportation needs. And although gas tax has gone up, so has vehicle gas efficiency paired with an increased use of EVs, which is of course great for our environment, but unfortunately not great for our roads. We can crunch the numbers, but this gap is what's leading to a lack of funding, and this is why SLOCOG is in search of new funding opportunities. And we have our little friend here, the unicorn. A lot of people have a lot of ideas about what can be done, but let's hit some of the main misconceptions head on. One of those being gas tax will repair our roads. Definitely not at this time at the funding we're collecting. If gas tax went up, it will fix the roads. Unfortunately, that's not a great option as well. The state will reprioritize its funds, definitely not at this time. Local funding will be reprioritized for roads. Maybe, maybe not. It depends who's in leadership. Caltrans will fund 101 improvements. In the county, we've had 2 major improvements in 25 years. Another one being EV owners pay an average amount for road repairs. Not even close. And finally, the state will change something to fix everything. Not at this time, and we're unfortunately still in search of that unicorn. And so let's talk about local road maintenance. So this is the representative of the road scores throughout the county. Paso is at about a 57 right now out of 100, and at 67 and 70, Pismo and Slow City are doing pretty good, but other cities are unfortunately falling behind. What's particularly frustrating is that the more a road deteriorates, I'm sure as many of you know, the more expensive it is to repair. By funding consistent road repairs, we'll be able to save money on reactive maintenance and overall poor roads. And, excuse me, and this is just a look at the 101. As mentioned, in 25 years, SLOCOG has received 2 grants to fix the 101, one being the Cuesta grade and the other one being a recent 4-mile repair in Shell Beach. But there's no funding to fix problems in North County, especially off of the 46 East northbound and older interchanges throughout the highway. And we really do not want to wait another 25 years for funding. And our next slide, this represents our neighbors. So as referenced, the transportation tax we're going after is considered a self-help tax. So 89% of Californians in 25 counties have self-assessed and dedicated a sales tax to transportation. This includes all our neighbors on the Central Coast. And unfortunately, we are falling behind. Both, as an example, both Santa Cruz and SLO County went after state competitive funds. Our population is slightly higher as a county. We dug up about $12 million to offer at a match and received about $36 million back in funding. Santa Cruz used their transportation tax and offered up $32 million and won back $115 million from Sacramento. We can't compete at their level, and winning low amounts takes the same amount of energy as winning high amounts. And with a potential transportation tax measure, this is just an example of what the tax won't go for. It will not be charged for housing, rent, medical, or basic groceries. but we estimated out the average person making about $60,000 a year will pay about $2.31 per week this tax. And for the San Luis Obispo region, a half-cent sales tax would raise $35 million per year, be used to leverage over $1 billion out of Sacramento over the 20-year sunset period, be protected from Sacramento. It cannot be used outside the county at all. It will strictly be used for local roads and infrastructure projects within SLO County. It will also speed up project delivery, which reduces costs, a guarantee that everything will go toward transportation, no bait and switch. Also will contain safeguards and ensure that tourists pay their fair share. We'll now move on to the draft investment plan, and John D'Annunzio will take over from here. And as many of you know, he manages most of the North County projects for SLCOG. Thank you.
John, welcome.
Thanks, Annie. Thanks for that background and overview, kind of a transportation 101, and also to illustrate the difference between a gas tax and a sales tax, what we're talking about. So this segment of the presentation is talking about the draft investment plan, which can be found at localroadsfirst.com. So let's dig into the plan. To approach it, we divided the county up into the 4 subregions: North Coast, North County, Central County, and South Coast. That half-cent sales tax is estimated, as we saw, to yield approximately $35 million per year between 2024, 2044, or over $700 million over 20 years. We approached dividing that $700 million distributed by each of the subregions based on the percentage of population share of each subregion. Then within that subregion, the population share was distributed to the cities and the unincorporated county areas and communities. And there was one adjustment which was made on the population share formula, which was an added $3 million provided to each of the 4 smallest cities in their subregion. So we're just going to go through each of those real quick. This is the draft investment plan for the North Coast, including the city of Morro Bay. And if the voter-approved transportation measure was made available, $100 million of unescalated cost would go into transportation projects in this subregion. As you can see, it's divided between 66% for local, or $66 million, 34% for regional. You'll see that formula throughout the rest of the subregions. Again, over 20 years with Morro Bay and Los Osos kind of getting the lion's share based on its population. And then regional road safety and mobility for all, also accessible. And that's the green and the mustard colored slides there. In the Central County, this is where the city of SLO resides, and you can see how its population is pushes up their component for transportation projects. Again, it's the 66% and 34%, yielding $102 million. Again, this is over a 20-year estimate, $52 million for regional, which also includes the road safety and mobility for all there. In South County, the transportation measure here is forecasted to bring $200 million unescalated for transportation projects, or $132 million, or $68 million with Arroyo Grande, Grover Beach, City of Pismo, Napomo, and Oceano, all benefiting from access to these funds for transportation projects. And then finally here, North County. So if a voter-approved measure is forecasted to bring $246 million unescalated into transportation projects, again, it's that division of 66% for local, hence the local roads first, 34% regional, yielding $164 million over 20 years. And that will go to local improvements with dividing the lion's share in the north between City of Atascadero and Paso Robles. Just to dive in a little bit, and I guess the purpose of why we're here tonight is to kind of get into this, leave this with you, and then hopefully collect some more information from yourselves and leaders and the community members, because once the draft is approved, should it get to that stage, these projects will be locked in to the, or some of these projects will be locked into the investment plan. So again, we came up with this list from surveys, focus groups, community group presentations, and city staff with a 52 million called out for a list of specifically local improvements or local area investments. And then here you'll see subdivided at the top with road repairs along Union Road, Paso Robles Street, Creston Road, Niblick, Spring Street, 30 million, and then another 22 million for other community road safety and congestion improvements, mobility. So each city is going to be given the option to review and to change these priorities and to provide additional guarantees like designated a specific amount or percentage to one or two of these improvements, or to simply shift funds between targets for one another. And again, I wanted to reiterate the ask is to review the subsection and approve upon it, some of the call outs. Additionally, but wait, there's more. Paso will also benefit from tapping into this 84 million of regional projects funding pot in North County, including a 30 million called out specifically for Highway 46 East. These improvements will contribute directly to the Union Road overcrossing. And then there's another 37 million dedicated to the 101 corridor, regional corridor. Now, these are going to be improvements between Cuesta Grade and San Miguel, but there are a number of key interchanges in City of Paso, like the 46 West, the 46 East off-ramp, and others, and we don't have a mechanism for funding those on our own, without the state help or federal help. Yeah, so as well as 17 million for regional pot and mobility projects. So those last three slides are really the overview of the draft investment plan. I'll share with you some of our steps and timing. And just to remind you, the ask today is to review the local area investments, the city section, and improve upon it. And we're going to be asking for final feedback from city leadership back to our Deputy Director, James Worley, who's just magically appeared. Okay, James. By the first week of April. Then on May 1st, SLOCOG board will be asked to approve the final investment plan. If the plan passes the majority of our board, we will come back to you. We'll come back to you and ask and seek if the City of Paso approves the final plan. If that happens, and if we have a majority of cities that do that, then there'll be one final go, no-go vote on May 29th at the SLOCOG board to see if the measure will get on the November ballot. So with that, between myself, Annie Bowski, and James Worthley have come in. Thank you for your time to entertain this. Again, Local Roads First is the name of this initiative. We thank you for your attention on this very serious matter.
Yeah. All right, John.
And of course, we are available for questions.
Yes, I was going to ask council, do you have anything for John at this point? Yeah, go ahead, Brad.
Yeah. One of the things I'm wondering is how firm is this? Are we going to be able to amend this at all?
Please, James Wood. Yeah.
In the near future? I'm a little concerned about some of the ratios. I know we're using population, but if we use center road miles, total road miles in the jurisdiction, it doesn't always fit population situations, which then leaves, even though we don't have as much population, we have more roads, we're on the short end of the stick. And even on population, I look at North County, Tascadero and Paso Robles combined have more population than San Luis Obispo, even with Cal Poly students. But we're getting exactly the same amount almost as San Luis, but for the two of us combined, which doesn't seem like the ratio is quite right.
Hi, good evening. I'm James Worthley, Deputy Director of SLOCOG. Sorry to arrive late. I was just at Pismo Beach City Council doing the same thing. And they had the exact same question, almost. Why can't we use sales tax collected? We'd get way more if it was based on that. We looked at multiple attributes of how to divvy up the funds. We reviewed those options with the city managers. Everybody has their win category and their loss category. Nobody wants their loss, everybody wants their win. What's the most understandable to the voting public is population. They know 30,000 people live in Paso Robles. That's the percentage of the total in the North County. That's the percentage of dollars that's coming to Paso Robles and to the North County. It's the most fair and understandable way that we can come up with. Every other city wants their win category also. I could put them all in, and what happens is it's real close to population.
One other question.
Sharon, go ahead.
The population is one of the issues, but I think for Paso Robles, we are the travel corridor. From I-5, 101 North, 46, there's a tremendous amount of traffic that comes through our area versus the other areas. Is there any thought that there should be a little bit more weighted towards that as well? More use?
SLOCOG wants to help with that. Local Roads First, and if they didn't mention it, I didn't catch it on the radio when I was driving in, localroadsfirst.com for your listening audience and public. That's where they can see all this stuff. That's how we can do it. When you look at Santa Barbara County, Santa Maria improvements, South Coast Santa Barbara, they all say, hey, everybody comes through here also. In Monterey, everybody goes through Prunedale. The way they're improving their efforts is through a regional option sales tax like this. It's not waiting for Caltrans to come in and fix it. Can we wait more toward where people are coming from? Sure. Pismo Beach wants us to weight it more toward their destination as the attractor. SLO wants to be the attractor and say, let's weight it based on that. We can throw all these things in the mix. It's going to come out to be confusing to the general public. And when they vote, they're going to say, I don't know if this is true or not. And that means they'll probably vote no.
Will this have any conflict with other measures?
We're going to find that out. In polling that has started already, and we'll find out the results probably the first week of April, how the city measures. A simple question on our poll is asking about city measure support, asking about a regional measure support, asking about the city measure support again to find out, is there a delta that takes away votes from one to the other? Is there a good reason, or is there a competition that? We'll find those results, but we won't know those results until the May 1st board meeting at SLOCOG. Personally, I think when you look at the funding sources we have for transportation, it's not one or the other that we need to advance our local roads, our maintenance, our highway improvements, our interchanges. It's both measures. We need both. And what we really needed was this measure 8 to 12 to 16 years ago, and then we'd have a lot of the projects taken care of, and we'd be doing the next things that are needed coming up.
James, I had a question basically that is there any interest in Sacramento with regard to the EVs and taxing them, where and they are using our roads, and there's a delta there that definitely needs to be filled, but I've heard that there's really no interest in Sacramento to try and make up that. Right now, they're going to want to have us tax ourselves, and in other words, making it as easy as they can for people to get into EVs. And the flip side of that is, I like the self-help part of it, as far as a county, and I see what's happened with other counties that's done that, but it's just an ironic thing that we have to tax ourselves to get more of our tax money back here, which really bothers me a bunch, what Sacramento's thinking. So is there any interest up there about the EV part?
All great points, and they were all raised in Pismo Beach today. And they asked the same question, and my response is going to be a little more polished this time, I think. But the state's priority is more EVs, not to inhibit their attractiveness.
Right.
When we say, hey, this is driving down the gas tax, you saw the chart, and whichever line you pick, it's not a pretty picture, it's diminishing. When we ask the state, well, what are you going to do to fix this?
Right.
Legislators say, we already have fixed this. 89% of Californians tax themselves for transportation improvements if they want them. If they don't want them, no problem. They tell us, become a self-help county, get your citizens to approve that tax, and then go after and leverage 3, 4, 5 times more money out of the state competitive pots. We can't do that. We can't compete. We can leverage 3, 4, 5 times a small amount.
Right.
They're leveraging, as Andy mentioned, I think $115 million for Santa Cruz in one active transportation grant, and they have 2 more bites at that same apple because they have a sales tax dedicated for transportation. They can go back to the state and get another $200 million in that one category.
Yeah. Problem, yeah, the rural communities, we just don't have the people in the population here versus big population centers seem to get more of the money sometimes. It's
Santa Cruz County's population is slightly lower than ours.
overall.
We're at 280,000 people. They're at 270,000 and change. So we're bigger and losing out to Santa Cruz. Our dollars are going to Sacramento and being won by Santa Cruz.
Councilman Browse.
Thank you. So when we look at this and it's based on sales tax or proposed sales tax increase, what's the relationship between giving it back to the localities based on population? It would be more fair, it seems, that if the lion's share of the sales tax was generated by a certain community, they should get the lion's share of the proceeds. I'm not seeing that happening here.
That was Pismo Beach's ask also. Why can't we just return more money based on sales tax that we're collecting? We collect more. Why don't we get more?
And the reason, just going back to Ms. Roden's point, we have more tourists coming here. We'll work very, very hard to make that happen.
Yeah.
They generate more wear and tear on the roads. They don't live here. They go home, generating a little more wear and tear on the roads, but they've left their sales tax dollars behind. We need that money to fix our roads, to improve our roads. Why not base it on sales tax?
It's not just Paso Robles that needs that money to fix their roads. It's every community, maybe not Pismo Beach and San Luis Obispo, but every other community or city has needs. Now, the voters, to approve something like this, a special tax guaranteed for transportation requires 2/3 to pass. 40% of our voters live in the unincorporated area, but they don't just stay in the unincorporated area. They come and shop, they come and work, they go to school in the cities. And each city, everybody doesn't stay in your city. You have workers that come from Atascadero, you have shoppers that go down to SLO, you have people that go over to the North Coast. Everybody moves around. This is a regional plan to affect and improve transportation region-wide. The smallest community, Shandon, San Miguel, they need improvements also. They collect very little sales tax. We'll overestimate by saying that, I think. They need improvements. If they can't see improvements, we can't hope to have them vote for it. In this plan, we show Shandon and San Miguel, yeah, they have very few people, but at least they're getting some improvements that they haven't seen and that they really want to see put on the ground. And this gives them that opportunity to get there.
Okay. All right. I think that's it. James, John, Annie, thank you for the presentation. And it looks like we're going to be getting back with you with some sort of information from the council individually, basically on what we think about this whole thing. So I think staff will be getting back with you on that too.
Yeah, ideally, I need to know
First
soon.
part of April, yeah.
And I will have to make sure that the city manager and the mayor and the SLOCOG board directors are all in the know, because I don't want to have conflicting things of change it this way or that way.
Very good. Well,
Before April 9th.
well, thank you for trying to get up here in time too. So appreciate it, James. Thank you. All right. Moving on, then we have general public comments. This is the time that the public may address the council on items within its purview, but not scheduled on tonight's agenda. Council or staff may briefly respond to statements or questions posed by the public. Please fill out a speaker information card and give it to our city clerk prior to speaking. You'll be limited to 3 minutes. And those wishing to speak on any item scheduled for tonight will be given an opportunity at the time when that item is being heard. Mr. Prashant, welcome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, John Prashant, San Luis Obispo County Supervisor, District 1. I rise today to read a resolution that we at the county passed for the city of Paso Robles in recognition of the 100th year anniversary of the Pittsburgh Pirates historic spring training home here in Paso Robles. And you thought I was going to talk about parking.
No.
So, whereas in the 1924, the Pittsburgh Pirates Major League Baseball team began practice in Paso Robles at the Paso Robles Athletic Park and continued through 1934. And whereas in 1925, the Pittsburgh Pirates practiced on the newly refurbished Paso Robles Athletic Park, essentially becoming Paso Robles' old Field of Dreams, and won the World Series. And whereas the Paso Robles community welcomed the Pirates with enthusiasm and greeted them as they arrived on the train, immediately making them feel at home. And whereas baseball fans would line up to have their memorabilia signed by players and coaches, such as Honus Wagner, who was once considered the greatest hitter and shortstop of them all. And whereas the Pittsburgh Pirates had a lineup of future Hall of Famers, including Harold Pye Trainer, Freddie Lindstrom, Paul Wainer, Lloyd Wainer, Kiki Kyler, and Burley Grimes, who practice here in Paso Robles. And whereas the Pittsburgh Pirates appreciated and adopted the Paso Robles community as their own, employing local residents and drawing huge crowds to their ball games. Now, therefore, be it resolved in order that the Board of Supervisors, the County of San Luis Obispo, do hereby recognize the 100th anniversary of the Pittsburgh Pirates training in Paso Robles. And we passed this on the 27th day of February 2024, and it is actually signed by all 5 supervisors, which is a miracle in itself.
Yeah, all right.
Just want to remind everybody that there is a Pittsburgh Pirate exhibit at the Paso Robles History Museum in the Carnegie Library. And by the way, Andrew Carnegie was from Pittsburgh, Scotland and then Pittsburgh, and that's where his university is. But it's a great exhibit over there at the History Center, and it's open this weekend, and love to see you all there.
Thank you very much for the honors, John. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Dave Nelson, and this is a little bit about parking. There's a referendum petition circulating around town about the parking issue in order to bring the paid parking issue to a full vote of the people. I just want to be clear and announce, so that everybody can hear it that's listening, that all citizens of this town and this region are entitled to their opinion about paid parking, pro or con. That all registered voters of Paso Robles, including employees of the city, any government agencies, employees of any businesses downtown, anyone is entitled to sign or not sign the referendum and should not be afraid of repercussions, harassment, disparaging, threats, extortion, or any other unfair treatment by anyone. Secondly, if any such thing happens, it's the responsibility of us citizens to report it. I don't know who it would be reported to, but certainly if any of that happens, it should be reported. I'd love to hear that all of you concur. Thanks.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, Michael Rivera, P.O. Box 3134. I just wanted to give a shout out to Christopher and the Utilities Division. Yay! We're no longer irrigating the asphalt in front of my home. And so that's greatly appreciated. Christopher and that department got right on it. That just goes to show the strength and the ability of our staff to be able to get things done in a timely fashion when it's brought to their attention. So I want to give them a thumbs up. And I also wanted to respond to Mr. Bausch's apology. No apologies needed, Chris. Sometimes this is an adversarial process. In case anybody doesn't recognize that, that's why you have 5 council members, because it's adversarial. Now, sometimes we all get along and hold hands and sing Kumbaya, and other times we don't. I mean, your city manager and me, what that's like. So I just wanted to let Chris know and the staff of this city know that no matter what goes on amongst this city council, that it's never personal. It's never been personal with me. I know it has been personal with others, and that's fine. I'm a big boy. I can take it. But one of the things that I want this staff to understand is they're an integral part of the success of this city. And there's nobody that I know of that has ever disparaged staff directly, individually, or personally. It's always been policy. And we can argue the policy and then leave the dais and leave our businesses and see each other on the street and say, how you doing? Good to see you. How's the family? Hope you're all healthy. Hope you're all happy. Because that's really what Paso Robles is. That's the spirit of this city. It's the spirit I've seen over the last 50 years. And so therefore, I know that the deep-seated spirit of this city is that of cooperation, understanding, and love for the people who come here to be embraced. So Chris, no need to apologize, but I understand why you did it. And there should never be anybody on this dais that wants to call somebody out because of a suggested behavior, unless it's overt, outrightly outrageous. Thank you.
That'll be enough. Thank you. Welcome.
Just go ahead. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I did get your emails today. Thank you for sending me that link about the parking. I'm more concerned about the ordinances, and this will be my response later. But that's not what I came here today for. What I came here today is that I have a contact at Assembly Addis's office. One of the comments that when I spoke with her staffer that she made about the parking program, there are only 2 theaters on this side of the county. If a Tuscadero or our Park Cinema should go down, we would have to drive all the way to a not a Tuscadero, Arroyo Grande, et cetera. So if there's a way to stop a citation with a movie night, I think that's the biggest encouragement. I have some other comments about it, but they're not important today, but I just wanted to say that. So I don't know if you guys are talking about the budget and everything, but Gavin's first shrink the shortfall came out. And they're robbing pretty big from a lot of programs, and you can look at it yourself and see where it matters. A lot of water, public health, aging. They're stopping the Medi-Cal prescription rebate program, so more people will be suffering trying to get their prescriptions this year. He raided the rainy day fund by, I think, 15 billion or half of it, so we only have half our rainy day fund. I tell people don't expect many changes this year. If Proposition 1 passes, it's really at a 300,000 vote right now that still needs to be counted, and he's only winning by 20K votes. So if that passes, he's planning to rob all the counties of their mental health monies. And so we're still hoping and praying that that doesn't pass. It's really important that it doesn't. The other thing is I was able to talk to Chief Harris, and our park has looked so nice. I encourage anybody to walk through it. The state and the HCD program immediately the park fixed the spacing issue, so they have to remove one permanent, and it gave the opportunity for some of my neighbors to get a new fifth wheel. The park looks great. Addis, that's who I work with. She has the mobile home residency protection program, and she's actually taken that to be her own now. So we're working on AB 2022, which is an emergency evacuation plan for all mobile homes in California this year. That's one of them. She is interested in touring the park, so she sees how her program works when that time comes. We're only 2 months in, it looks great already. So I just want to thank you for that. And then I'll always have the current housing if you guys are ever interested. Oh, that's the other thing. When I spoke with my legislative lobbyists, we're encouraging maybe Paso Robles to consider new mobile home parks here. If we have the land, it would be nice to have them since they're kind of the new condos now. No one can afford getting into condos, but have a good night. And here's this if anybody's interested.
Thank you, ma'am. Dale?
Good evening, Dale Guston, now residing at 630 13th Street. When I first came here, I got to know a lot of the dignitaries of this council, including Gary Stemper, and I ran against him, got within 100 votes. I'm glad I didn't win because Gary Stemper was a good councilman and a good mayor. And of course, I got to know Chris Iverson right away. I had a case against him, and he became our mayor. And then, of course, Steve Martin and Jennifer, we used to go caroling at Christmas time, and I got to know him right from when I first came here. So I've been very fortunate to have friends on this council, and I consider all of you friends. But I'm a little bit embarrassed over the nice honoring you did for Steve Martin and the presentations you gave to Jennifer, but on the same night, you shamed his memory by passing that ordinance on paid parking when you knew Steve Martin was against it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment?
We do have one caller online.
Francisco. Yeah, Francisco.
Good evening, City Council. Francisco Ramirez, long-time resident. I wanted to ask, is anything gone about, because local residents asked me again to ask, about the street on 34th Street. Has there any updates on that of someone coming in and maybe checking out the drainage, doing a ditch witch, and, kind of update on that? Anything else going on? I know that we got work going on Crescent Road, looking good. I'm driving that every day. And any updates on the bumps on both bridges coming in and out 13th Street going to Crescent? What was the other one? There were other ones. But while I was here, and I'm glad I listened to it, this was my third time listening to the Slow Cog report that they've done. And I really, really hope that you guys read the full report, look at the big picture, that it really is an improvement to help this community right here locally, Paso Robles, and not worry about the little things. If we can get all the other communities on board, this is something that can really save money in millions later down the road, so that we are not, trying to push and get some money from the state or federal. And this is something that will help us in the long run, in the millions of dollars, as you saw their presentation. Like I said, this is the third time I've seen it, because I've been to other committees in the county and saw the full presentation. And I think it's really great that they're going for it. And I think this is something that Mr. Strong should really look at, you being our transportation guy all the way up to the state, because it's really something really good to help us locally, as long as the rest of the communities around us decide to jump on board and really save this community some money.
Thank you, Francisco. I think if you would also maybe reach out to Frida Berman and our Public Works about your questions on 34th, that'd probably be best.
Francisco, did you want to invite the council Saturday?
Oh, yes. By the way, we do have the Mexican consulate coming into Paso Robles this weekend. I do invite you all and the community, if they want to go and be there and be present, of what the process gets done for our local immigrant people here in Paso Robles, but not just Paso Robles. They serve the whole community from San Miguel to Ventura County, which is their population that they take care of, the Mexican consulate out of Oxnard. They will be here Saturday and Sunday. I invite you to come on down, check it out, see the process from 8 o'clock in the morning to 12, Saturday and Sunday, Oak Park Community Center. And you are all welcome to come in, check it out. I will be there both days. Please look me up, and hopefully we'll see you. I'm going to have coffee ready for you.
I think I'm supposed to be there a little before noon on Sunday, but I'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Francisco. Okay. Anyone online, Melissa?
Yes, sir. Jan Albin.
Okay. Jan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. And can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. First of all, I want to thank Dixon Resources for finally putting their privacy policy on their website. I'm sure, as you know, as things are in our world today, you must understand that we have concerns about who has access to our personal information and who they share it with. If you read the Dixon privacy policy, you'll understand our concerns because they have affiliates that they share certain kinds of information with. And especially knowing that Julie Dixon is the president of, and our own Donna King is the vice president of, and we have a representative from Flowbird, our cell phone application owners, who is the director of Southwest Parking and Transportation Association. There's a lot of opportunity within that group to share information, and hence our concerns. So be diligent about your personal information. Go on to the Dixon website and see who they share that information with, and please pay attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and close public comment then and move on then to item H. And City Manager Lewis, is there any agenda items to be deferred?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on then to I, overview of items on the consent calendar. City Manager Lewis, would you go ahead and read those out?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the first item is approval of the March 2nd, 2024 City Council special meeting minutes. Item number 2 is approval of the March 5th, 2024 City Council meeting minutes. Item number 3 is receipt of the warrant register, and as promised, I'm happy to point out that there are 2 large items in there if the community is interested, in the amount of $2,011,557. First item is in the amount of $629,218, and the second item is in the amount of $1,382,498. And then the last item is approval of an agreement with Moss, Levy, and Hartzheim LLP for auditing services for fiscal years 23, 24 through 27 and 28. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you very much, Ty. The consent calendar is items on the consent are considered routine and do not require separate discussion. However, any member of the council or the public wishing to pull a particular question on an item can submit that or pull the whole item for consideration separately, which would be put at the end of the discussion item list. So I'll start off with council. Anyone wish to have any questions on consent? Anyone in the public have any questions on consent? Bring it back then to council for discussion and or action.
Mayor Martin, I'm sorry. I'd like to move we approve consent agenda item 1 through 4.
Okay, so we have a motion by Pro Tem Gregory, items 1 through 4 on consent, second by Strong. Any discussion? All right, I'll call for the question, Melissa.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Roden?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to discussion items. The first item is the approval of fiscal year 2024 to 25 and city goals. So, Chris Hewitt, you have the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Honorable Mayor, City Council, Chris Hewitt, Assistant City Manager. Back with you this evening to talk goals one more time. Up on the screen this evening is a timeline of the budget process and where we are today. We started this process back in February with the approval of this essentially calendar. We spent about 6.5 hours or so on March 2nd talking about department goals and priorities and receiving feedback. Tonight is the culmination of that work and where we're at today with the goals. We have several other items ahead of us and dates ahead of us related to the budget adoption, again, culminating on June 18th with the adoption of the city budget in advance of the July 1 fiscal year starting. So just a quick refresh, the City Council goals are a really important document for city staff in particular. These goals help us as we develop the budget to present to you here in the coming weeks, prioritize both the fiscal allocations that are in that proposed budget, and when the budget's adopted and the goals are adopted, it also then allocates and helps us prioritize staff time, as that is, of course, a finite resource. These goals are developed through a combination of input from a multitude of sources, including the council, the public, and staff. And what we did this year, as we talked about last time, is moved to a bit different of a format that are a bit more specific, I think, and less aspirational than they were in previous years, with some pretty specific metrics and deliverables. These are all timeline-driven goals, and they're meant to be a bit more action-oriented for our departments, again, to be able to work off of and bring you back those specific deliverables and measurables so the council and the public can look at the goals and weigh the outcomes versus what we were attempting to achieve over the 2-year budget cycle. Quickly on the goals overview, there's 6 goal areas broken out into different topic areas or categories. You can see them up there on the screen. What that results in is 43 different standalone initiatives or action items that are included for your consideration this evening. Those are just the broad initiatives. Many of those items contain sub-activities. So although it's 43 specific initiatives, there are many more of those sub-activities within those initiatives that staff is looking to achieve in the coming 2 fiscal years. Again, the updated structure includes 6 of those goal areas, as I mentioned. Within each of those goal areas, there's a goal statement, kind of a broad overview of what we're looking to achieve in that goal area. Each of the initiatives, within each initiative, there's the department or departments that are responsible for carrying out that task, a timeline, and those metrics or deliverables. So just quickly for the council and the public, just kind of one of these examples of the change in formatting. We showed this to you previously, but this was a prior goal from this last budget cycle, and it was very kind of high level and aspirational, develop framework for public art funding. We want to carry that forward into this next budget cycle, but get a little more specific and specifically reference the review and update of the Arts in Public Places Ordinance and bring back updates for you on recommendations related to the program. And then, again, this is what you have in your backup material for this item. It has the initiative, the department and the departments who are going to be responsible for this initiative, the timeline, and then those deliverables. So for each one of those initiative or goals, that's what you're going to see in the backup, and that's what staff would be working off of to achieve those goals. Also included is a memo. We have 43 or so of these memos that are included in your packet, and each one of those is attributable to one of those 43 initiatives that I talked about that provides the council and the public with a bit more detail on what it is we are looking to achieve and why, and if there is a fiscal impact that's included in there for the reader. So I mentioned, and in the staff report, I outline, the staff report outlines, I think, 4 or 5 pieces of feedback that we received during the workshop that were specific. And out of those 4, I think we're recommending 1 proposed modification or addition to the goals document, which is around affordable housing. There were several members of the public and council members that emphasized the need to focus on a goal on affordable housing. So this is what we came up with. It essentially would be working with the Housing Authority or HASLO to identify at least 3 locations for potential affordable housing projects and putting together jointly a funding plan to move those projects forward. That would be what would come back to the city council. This is closely related to a goal that community development and Director Fraze put together related to multifamily housing. So not just affordable housing, but this is kind of a cousin goal to that. But we felt that there was enough distinction and recognition of need for affordable housing to add this one in particular. A little bit of cleanup here is that the goals can be revisited prior to the start of the July 1 date as budgets deliberations dictate. So as we get into the meat and potatoes of the budget process, there may be either fiscal constraints or decisions made by the council that may render one of these goals moot or may require a modification or to one of these goals. And so we just want to let the council and the public know that there would be that opportunity. Really what's being approved tonight is kind of hopefully the bulk of the goals for us to be able to then get some direction to really fine tune the fiscal or the budget and that we're going to bring to you next month. And then I also made a note in the staff report, and I wanted to bring this to the forefront, that there were several other items that were brought up by the public at that workshop, and we tried to provide a very succinct summary in the staff report of how staff is addressing those and whether or not they're going to be recommended to be included in the goals document. At this point, we're not recommending any other changes to the goals document other than the one I covered, but I wanted to let the council and the public know that we are working on those items, and some of those will come back to council for further discussion. In particular, there was a comment about potentially providing assistance for certain types of events in city parks. And so I know our community services staff is reviewing that. There was also a question on a crosswalk, and we're doing some more due diligence on that one as well. And then finally, I believe there was a request for funding for ECHO. And at this point, we're recommending to essentially kind of bake that into the proposed budget that comes before you. And then from there, council can have deliberation and discussion on how best to proceed. But that is how staff is recommending we address that this evening. So just a quick look ahead before I wrap up. We have our coffee with the city manager on this Friday at 7:30 over at the Patina Room at Cow Coast Brewing. And this one will cover goals and budget for next year. So a truncated version of the presentation that you all received on March 2nd with any updates from this evening. And then we also talked about looking at a Spanish-speaking engagement session sometime in April. We're still nailing down dates and locations, but we will do public outreach when that information is available. And then finally, we've created a budget webpage on the city website that it contains every presentation that has been made or will be made on the budget. You can find that right on the homepage or directly through this website here. We'll make that, it's already out there, but we'll continue to emphasize that information is there and available as this process moves forward. So with that, this evening, the recommendation is for you to approve the updated city council goals for fiscal year 24-25 and 25-26 as written. And with that, myself and staff are happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. We'll begin with the council. Anyone on council? Sharon?
New at this process, so I just want to make sure that certain things were covered when there was talk about changing how the flashing lights were at crosswalks. And I think we were talking about 24th and Oak, and maybe this one right out here. Are they all inclusive of any of the ones that we have crosswalks where we have the blinky, or are we going to have the, for lack of a better term,
I'll
the
defer
one down
to
at 34th? I just want to make sure the one at 34th Street is going to be included.
Councilmember Oden, I believe, and I'll defer to Frida if she has additional information, but that's something that staff's going to be looking at directly kind of outside the goals process.
That's part of our so,
right. Okay.
Pro Tem Gregory?
Frida.
Don't sit down.
Catch her before she sits down.
Dale, we're not at this point yet.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry to have you come back up. So is there plans for a crosswalk at Serenade and South River Road?
Serenade and South River,
That's where
I would have to check. I don't know off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
That seems
But I'll
like-
check.
Yeah, I heard about it from the senior advisory committee, and it's right by that senior project that goes all along River Road. So that was my question, sorry.
Okay, I'll find out.
I do have another question also.
Okay.
So I don't know who to ask this, so I'll ask Chris. So in the items that were brought from the public to the council, and this is a philosophical question, but it is a question. So ECHO made a presentation to request funding from the city, providing funding contribution for the shelter operations. And I'm going to just throw the comment, I consider ECHO a partner in this, so I'm going to ask this question. Why is it not part of the budget, proposed budget?
And I'm sorry if I misspoke. We do plan on including it as part of the proposed budget that comes before you in April.
Okay.
What we didn't do is include it in the goals document itself. We wanted to, it's kind of baked into the operation, kind of day-to-day type stuff. So it was going to be, it's in the proposed budget, or will be in the proposed budget for your deliberations, but it's not in the goals document.
Okay, and so what does that mean when it's not in the goals?
It just means that what we tried to do this year was simplify the goals document a little bit, where these are kind of the very big projects and initiatives that the city wants to tackle. And those things that are a little bit more day-to-day or ongoing operationally are just not elevated to this document. It's not to say they aren't happening, they are. But we didn't want to try to throw everything in the goals document, because then it gets bloated, or we get back to that kind of aspirational type of document that has not been super helpful, I think, in feedback from staff to kind of tackle. So it's the council's discretion if you'd like to add something specific into the goals document pertaining to ECHO. Staff's recommendation was we just include it in the proposed budget. That'll come before you in April, and then you can go from there. But if you want to elevate it to this document, that's your prerogative this evening.
Well, I'm just trying to understand why it wouldn't. I mean, to me, it's like the strategic plan. They should be part of that plan or part of our goal. So, and the goal pretty plainly says about taking care of our homelessness. So that was my comment, and I don't know what anybody else wants to do with it. But that's my question for right now.
Okay,
thank you.
Chris Boucher.
Thank you. So tonight, we're approving the goals. We're not really approving any monetary amounts. The goals as presented, is that indicative of the priority, or we're not going to priority yet, or how do you want to handle that?
So at this point, this would be the recommendation is to approve the goals as written. These items, if they have a budgetary impact, will come back as part of the proposed budget. At that point, there's going to be recommendations and then from staff and then deliberation on council to determine kind of what remains in and what remains out based upon our fiscal outlook and capacity. So this is really just trying to move the ball down the field a little bit.
So all of these will come back, and we'll
That's the intent, yes.
Split hairs on budget, and that's how we're going to define priority.
Correct.
Thank you, Chris. Great job.
Okay, Pro Tem Gregory, let's do one more, and then we'll
one
get
more
to
question.
Fred.
Chris, so, and this is a compliment and for Frida, but her presentation was massive to us and very important, and I understand that. So when we get to that point of her budget, can we separate that so we can have a better, cleaner look at it? Because it was just so much to absorb that night.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to get into that fine detail.
Thank you.
Councilman Strong.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask, sometimes we tend to forget, any one of us can, because we're looking at very specific numbers and we're looking at goals and things like that. We forget what a budget is versus what an expenditure is. A budget is merely a plan on what we allow and think we might have to spend. But nothing gets spent until it comes back to us for an actual expenditure. And then it gets heard all over again as to whether that particular expenditure fits in what we're trying to do or not. So we're not spending any money at all. Okay? We're just anticipating what the situation might be. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the way the plan is here is that April 16th, the second meeting in April, we're going to start seeing some numbers being applied on paper for our goals.
Quick question again. I'm very new at this particular process. I know that ECHO made a presentation. There are other entities I think that we have sponsored or been partners with in the past, like the Chamber and Main Street, and I guess Travel Paso too. When do they have the opportunity to present to the council?
So those groups, I know some of them have been before you recently, but in terms of budget preparation, typically because those are kind of long-standing, we've put those into the proposed budget, highlighted them for you for discussion when that proposed budget comes to you. And then there's deliberation at that point in time or feedback from the council. So it's a echo, and Mr. Lewis and others can certainly jump in if I get something wrong here. But I know that at the time that was kind of looked at as a 2-year agreement that we were going to revisit at the end of 2 years as staff understood it. And that's why the MOU was written in that particular way. And so this was that's that checkpoint that we're at right now. The others, I know we've had agreements with the Chamber, Main Street, and the Wine Alliance for several years now. And so we just typically put those into the proposed budget and then highlight them for you when that proposed budget is presented.
All right, I'll wait and see. I may have questions about just.
Ms. Roden?
Yes.
If it's, not to beat around the bush too much, but if you'd like a presentation, we can certainly make a request from any or all of those groups to come and make a formal request or for any kind of funding to the council, talk about what they do with the money, how they spend it, and if that would provide you more context for helping with these kind of decisions.
I would. For anyone who has an ask of the city, I'd like to understand a basis for that ask.
We'll work that into the process.
Okay. Any other questions, council? Okay, we'll open it up to public. Dale, you wanted to come up first. Go ahead.
Dale Guston, a comment about the safety crossing reminded me, I've been complaining about months about the button on the west side of Spring Street going to this building has not been working.
We'll get that on the list too. Welcome.
Thank you, Chris, for the presentation on budget. You know, when we're looking at budgets, one of the key questions that I don't think is ever asked is how do we as a city look inwardly as to how we're spending money? Everybody thinks that everything just needs to inflate. Where are we going as far as efficiencies, being able to do our job better? Private business does that all the time. There's a finite amount of money. There's no magic money tree. Even though people would wish there was, there isn't. Money comes from hardworking people. From people who go out and work every day, get up at 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, go out, work in the vines, work in the wine business, work in their businesses. It's hardworking people that earn those dollars. So when do we as a city look inwardly to look at efficiencies? When do we look at ourselves? Because we know as business people, because I think you always bring this up, Mr. Mayor, it's business. It's all business. Well, if we're really talking like that, then let's start looking at how we as a city are operating ourselves. Can we reduce our expenses 5%, 10%? I know there's restricted funds. I know there's funds that we have to spend a certain amount on every year. But there are ways that we can become more efficient. But when you think there's a magic money tree and you have a taxing authority, you just think, well, we'll just tax more. That's a bad idea. It really annoys people. And if you think you're going to get a tax passed in any near future, I'd start thinking about that. I'd start showing the public, no, we as a city are looking at efficiencies to help. And I see nothing in this budget exercise that does that, really. And that should be something that we should all look at specifically. Because the taxpayers are abused, misused, because they pay for road taxes and all these other taxes, and you've got roads that are in such horrific condition. It's like riding in a covered wagon, even though you're in a $40,000 brand new car. That you paid a lot of taxes on, by the way. And then the roads are crap. So let's do a line item for efficiency. How we can reduce our budget by 5% and then sweep that into roads or something like that. Thank you.
Good evening, Chris Beal. Hello?
Welcome, Chris.
Okay. I just want to take a moment to compliment staff. I'm not going to mention everybody's names, but I mean this in a good way. I mean, they really did a great professional job on the goals report and running that meeting. Very, very informative. I also want to thank, council direction in changing the housing piece in the goals document. Again, that's important that we're partnering with Haslo and Paso Housing Authority to, be looking at affordable units. It's really important that the town look at the diversity of housing options available, right? Multifamily, there are lots of, creative solutions out there. The Housing Summit last week was very interesting. And again, I know we have professional staff that are very up to speed on the different types of options. The issue with housing, it affects recruitment, right? It affects our working families. It affects our workers, being able to maintain a workforce here to support the travel industry and the hospitality industry and all of the other things that we have here. The other thing, I kind of just wanted to, step up about 30,000 feet. And, when we look at the full document of the 70-page, goals document, is it really capturing the needs of like our working families, of our younger people? Everything in that document is very important. Roads, infrastructure, parks and recs, all of that stuff is so interesting, is so important. But really, when we talk to people, they're going to mention concerns about housing and transportation. We know that transportation is even more critical right now in terms of school transportation, right? With closing Georgia Brown, with consolidating the middle schools. I know typically, the city doesn't think about school transportation as part of its purview, but we know that all of the traffic on the roads is a problem for every person that's driving it, whether they're a parent or not. We know that the wear and tear is an issue for the city. And I would really encourage you all to establish some sort of informal or formal collaborative liaison conversation with the school district, because it is in the city's interest to help mitigate, help solve some of these problems. I know that there's a lot of professional expertise on the council and on the staff that could help move a process along to help our working families get their kids to schools. I don't know what that looks like, but again, I think, a relationship with the district and the council would be really important and could help address some of the problems and the challenges with our working families that maybe we aren't seeing it at Coffee with Ty because they're dropping their kids off at school. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Welcome.
Thank you.
Austin Solheim, I'm the Director of Operations and Development for El Camino Homeless Organization, or ECHO. First, I want to just thank Chris for the opportunity during the public workshop to come up and really just the guidance of city staff and city council to come and speak and advocate on behalf of ECHO. Sharon, to your point, 2 years ago, the city of Paso Robles made an investment in our organization to make an impact on our homeless population. A year ago, when I came and gave statistics at this time, we had 26 individuals and families that had gotten housed in March of 2023. This year, we're at 65 individuals and families. So when we talk about investment and we talk about efficiency, that is where I bring up ECHO. And I ask you, when you look at your goals of addressing homelessness in our community, that you add sustainability of our programs that are already existing into your goals as well. I love that everything that the city is bringing forward, the new things to address, the affordable housing, an incredible process of learning all the amazing things that the city of Paso Robles is doing to really support and benefit their community. But I ask that you look at that word of sustainability and supporting the programs that are already existing, the programs that you have already chosen to invest in, to continue to support them, let them grow, and let ECHO and other organizations continue to make an impact, as well as supporting all of the new things that are coming. So I appreciate it, and I just ask and thank you all for taking the time to look at those as we work on this budget cycle together.
Thank you, Austin. ECHO is a great partner, and we certainly have a good partner at all with ECHO and doing all the work that they do. All right. Anyone else? Do we have anyone online? Oh, we have
No, sir.
Francisco, you're going to speak. You bet. Go ahead. Go ahead, Francisco.
Francisco Ramirez. I thank you, Gregory and Madam, for bringing that up of ECHO and to show that it should be brought up also into the goals category. And also, thank you for mentioning that up. I do think it's great support to help the rest of our community. That's a community that needs dire need of help, and it's been very successful being here in our city. I've seen improvements. I've seen people get better, come out of that with jobs, with help, with placements into a permanent home, to a permanent location, and that also helps our community and our pride and here with helping them get, and also in our economy, because we're placing that individual in a job. So that helps the rest of our community. So I do think, and I appreciate that, Gregory, bringing that up, and hopefully you can bring it into the goals category. And talking about budget, talking about money, that goes into directly with the slow cog presentation that was given to you earlier today. That if we approve that, and if you guys can really read the report, go through it, like I told you, I already seen it 3 times in San Luis Obispo, different committees that it was presented to. And in the long run, it's going to save us money to start that right now and help the rest of our infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff, welcome.
Yeah, hi. Jeff Carr, Paso Robles. Yeah, I was looking at all these selections here, and it's it's a lot of, that's tough decisions. Everything was good as that I looked at. I couldn't see anything that wasn't, I wouldn't call it priority. But for me, I usually focus on, when I look at the city needs, there's basics, and that's the infrastructure and, fire and police and those items. Of course, now with the homelessness situation, I think that is also a very high priority. I think on the when I was looking at what you listed down there for the roads and such, I honestly thought that a PCI goal of 60 in 20 to 25 years was a little too conservative. I mean, I think you should be shooting higher than that somehow. I don't know where you get the money, but this is the roads are. If I talk to anybody, and I have been talking to a lot of people lately, passing around the referendum petition, and if there's anything that I hear most about, aside from the parking, are the roads. They say, come back with a petition to get the roads fixed. And I'll be happy to sign that too, because it's affecting everybody here. I mean, I'm personally, I sometimes can't wait to just get on the 101 and go south. I mean, I can go to Lowe's from my house, or I can go to Home Depot, and often, even though it's farther away, Home Depot will be the nicer ride. At least I won't have to battle the potholes and the traffic. That's not good for the city. If I'm avoiding driving in the city, and not paying that sales tax that you want to bring in. So I would again, I just want to say that's a tough decision. I'm glad I don't have to make all these decisions on this at the moment, because everything there in that list that I saw looked pretty needed items. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Anyone else in the public? Anyone online again?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll bring it back to council then for discussion and direction to staff.
Mayor Hammond?
For Tim Gregory.
Could I have our city manager explain to Chris Beal how we work with the school as a liaison?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gregory. So yes, we do have a formal relationship with the school district, and we regularly meet to discuss things. In fact, we've been having standing meetings, although through COVID, I will say that they got a little derailed, where we get together and we talk about interests, not just with the school district, but our area school and education partners such as Cuesta, as well as Cal Poly also. So the city has a longstanding history of trying to work together to solve problems. In fact, as of recently, we've had discussions with them about how they could potentially help us solve problems, such as relocating our bus, using their fleet maintenance facilities potentially for temporary use for us or even long-term use. We've talked about sharing fields for recreational uses, and all of that also plays back into Mr. Rivera's comments regarding looking inward. We are always looking for additional efficiencies, whether it's regionalism, where we can share expenses through regional efforts, or with sharing with the school district or other government partners that might have duplicate offerings within their services, to determine whether or not we can make the most of those and save the taxpayers funding whenever we can.
I was going to mention too.
Mr. Mayor, just on that same comment and I think it goes to the heart of Ms. Beal's point, the transportation issue. I believe that the school district may be coming back to request a discussion on expanding RTA. I don't have the authority to speak for the school board, but I believe that's an intent that we should probably consider looking at, and I think would be beneficial for all of us, especially with as we do road construction. There's one other point. There is the governmental affairs meeting continues to go on. I think that's put on by the Paso Robles and Templeton Chamber of Commerce. The agencies that you mentioned and others are still participating in that. That might be just a suggestion that the school district get back involved in that.
I was going to ask and make a comment about the fact that, in my review of the different department budgets year to date, most all of them are on the conservative side, basically way under budget in some cases. So maybe you can address that effort too.
No, I think that those are excellent points, and we do that internal audit. In fact, you'll notice some items that are recommended not only in our discussion when we had our workshop, but again reiterated tonight, that we're looking at police department, fire department, staffing in particular. Those are two particularly large line items within the budget, trying to determine the best way to deploy them, what kind of staffing needs that we would have in the future, whether we're overstaffed or whether we're understaffed, based upon our calls for service, the amount of time that we spend on them, how long it takes us to get to those calls, whether there's efficiencies that could be obtained from decentralizing our services to become more efficient. And those exercises occur throughout the organization, including right now, Mr. Cornell's group is undertaking a comp and classification study to determine whether our compensation is in line with our comparator agencies and those within the county, to be able to give council a sense of where we are with those, to help us set a compensation philosophy that meets those needs as well. I can tell you that, demand for services keeps increasing year by year. as our community continues to grow, as we see more visitors. In that vein, we're also undertaking recommending to council that we undertake a impact study on tourism on the community, so that we can quantify the pros and the cons to our local economy, our ecosystem, so to speak, quality of life issues, to help the council and the community understand where those types of influences on our budget and our services that we offer to the community. So there is an inward look, constant and regularly when it comes to that. In fact, you can ask many of my staff that, Mark from the airport mentioned it just as on his way out, that, my motto is we have to start making good business decisions, smart business decisions, and no more bad decisions. And so we look at everything, we scrutinize everything to make sure that we are using our tax dollars as efficiently as we can.
Well done. All right. Thank you, Ty. I'd like to go ahead and maybe bring it back to council then, and let's kind of just there's 6 goal areas that I think we can just hit real quick and make sure that everybody's pretty comfortable with what's written, and unless there's some major changes. So the first one, of course, is transportation infrastructure. Any council member have anything there that popped out on them, or that it just, again, this is a higher view right now. We're going to get down into the cost of them at our future meeting, but for right now, as far as staff, and put it on paper for them to work with. Do we have any issues with anything on this? Okay, seeing none, then go ahead and hit the next one. Goal area public safety services, mostly fire, some police in there too, of course. Safety's big. Anything there that's sticking out for any council member? Okay. Next one is going to be the cultural, recreational, and open spaces. Mostly community services.
That's good.
Anyone on that? Looking good?
Quick question. Thanks for the reminder. There's ongoing discussion regarding location of City Hall. Where does that discussion, is that part of this? Is that something completely separate?
Mr. Bass, that's a great question, and it is something that's going to be facing us in the area. We're bursting at the seams when it comes to space. We just, in fact, had a meeting earlier today about potential increases to the City Hall Annex over where Administrative Services is, and we're also diligently working towards establishing a permanent city yard to be able to, handle some of the overflow of our employees in the utilities division, utility billing. So we're working on that, but yes, you're absolutely spot on. We need to come up with a recommended strategy for council, which we're still evaluating our options. At one point within the last 2 years, we looked at expanding the physical presence of this building outward, which is a very expensive process, because if we do that, then it triggers ADA retrofit issues for this building. In addition to that, we have to remember council's commitment to our library partners, whether or not we're going to provide them additional space, new space, different space. There's a lot of factors that go into that. And then the biggest question that's looming out there is, we know on the small side, it's about a $20 million figure just to expand City Hall, factoring in those ADA, and that was in 2 years ago, dollars. So that is an unresolved issue. We were hoping to get some good news with on the library side of things when we applied for a planning grant to potentially relocate library services out to Centennial. We weren't in the finalists of that group. So we're trying lots of different unique ideas to unlock dollars to help us, but we haven't quite come up with that solution as of yet.
And then before we walk away from the library, I don't mean to spring this on you, I apologize, but there's an opportunity before the library board to acquire a bookmobile. If there's any money in this year's budget to assume ownership, it looks like Foundation, I think, would take care of acquisition. But if we can partner with them, and if there's any money in this year's budget, that would be very helpful and very, very timely.
Yep, we'll continue to work on all of those.
Okay, good, Chris. And the next goal area was homeless response. Again, have a great partner with ECHO, but community service is doing quite a lot there that is already on the paperwork here. Anyone have any other suggestions on that?
So I liked a comment that Austin made out there is a goal of sustainability of our partner. I think that would be,
that's a good one.
I think it's significant.
Yeah,
And they're,
I was going to bring that myself.
they've shown to be a very good partner with us. So.
Yeah, very efficient with tax dollars that are being spent.
Very efficient.
Yep, and I want to reiterate to council that it is Mr. Hewitt did a great job explaining it, but it's worth reiterating is that originally when ECHO came to us, it was a one-time request for funds as it was presented as a budget shortfall at that time. We certainly appreciate their financial situation typically doesn't improve over time when it comes to instability with state or federal grants or even local grants. So the increased reliance on government funding is there, and we intended to work that in there. Again, I think that how council wants to word that is up to you, but there hadn't been any formal discussion about making this a recurring cost, although we had baked it into the budget as an option for your discussion.
Okay. Second to last here, we have goal area, community and economic development. Mr. Frace's department. Anybody have anything on this page that we would like to add or change? Yeah. Okay. And the last one then we have is the engaged and responsive government. And there's quite a lot on that page there too that we have put on for goals. So anybody have any issues on that?
No, these are goals. It's kind of like the homeless issue. Now, there we have a lot of ongoing things where we're interacting with a lot of other agencies also to help us have collaboration and a better impact. Because speaking to the funding issue and taxes, we have almost no power to raise any taxes here. Very limited. The state controls and the federal government controls almost everything having to do with the taxes we get. If we get a lot of tourism, then it affects our sales tax, but that sales tax is actually set by the state, most of it, except for the little bit of increment that we're allowed to have, which is very small. And then, and a lot of people, I think, don't realize that we only get a very small percentage of that sales tax. Not that most of it is going to the state, not to us. And the same thing with a lot of other things, that we have to struggle, and our costs are escalating. Inflation is catching all of us. So even when the budget goes up, it doesn't mean we're actually wasting more money or spending more money on things. It's we're setting the same value of money on things, but things have gotten more expensive.
Paso Robles is definitely, customer service organization. That's what we do for our residents and need to be responsive. And I think, again, I'm very happy with what we have on the paper. Again, it can always be added, but it all takes us money, of course, too. Okay, I have nothing else. Does anybody have anything additional? So then the direction at this point is to give staff any further direction on this.
Mr. Mayor, just to Mr. Rivera's point, is there a way that we can, and I don't know if this is an ad hoc committee or a citizens committee, just to look at reviewing costs? That might be something to put on a future. I don't know if it's time sensitive. It's when I've done these in the past, it's a lot of work. I don't know if we want to try to get it done for this budget, but maybe look into it sometime next fiscal year. But I think it's a good point.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? I'm going to ask a question about
Pro Tem Gregory.
So Ty, we could wrap that into the engaged and responsive government section.
There you go.
For the goals.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would, again, looking at a SMART goal format that we're looking at I would ask council, what is it that you hope to achieve, and how do we convert that into a SMART goal if that's something that the entire council would be interested in. Alternatively, in the next budget cycle, if you'd like to Mr. Bausch's point, we could appoint an ad hoc Mr. Mayor, you could appoint an ad hoc committee that could look into any aspect of the budget that you felt that you were interested in order to answer questions, make recommendations, or, to further facilitate a orderly budget process.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Sounds good. Sounds like a plan.
I think it's sit there. Okay.
Okay. Our options then are a recommendation to staff.
I'll make a motion
Pro Tem Gregory.
that we approve the updated city goals for fiscal years 2024, 2025, 2026.
Second.
With, sorry.
Yeah, we got a little more.
With that little caveat about sustainability for ECHO in our goal.
Okay.
Do we need that? I mean, I appreciate the caveat, but if we make a caveat for ECHO, which I agree with, by the way, do we need to make caveats for everything else? I would trust staff to put that in according to Mr. Hoat's.
Well, that exists for a lot of people already, like the Chamber, Main Street.
Correct, and I don't want it to be misconstrued as, well, we didn't approve anything for the Chamber, therefore they're out. So if you put it in there for ECHO, do you have to put it in there for everybody else?
No, not necessarily, but this
And I would recommend council on this one. I mean, it sounds like, at least through the conversation I've heard tonight, that you're very much in support of funding them. Right. That's going to make it into the budget. And I think that, money talks.
Yeah, and again, as far as sustainability, Pro Tem Gregory is, every year, or every 2 years, the budget changes. It could be that we might do more, might do less. But sustainability is a kind of a word, that kind of a button there that says we're going to do it forever kind of a thing. And I can't really quite say that. On the other hand, it's certainly something that councils can do at that time when they do their budgets. So,
yes. Okay. So intended.
All right. So we have a motion by Gregory, second by Bausch. Any discussion?
The motion sounds caveat. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Just the way it stands.
All right.
Thanks.
Then, okay, we'll call for the question.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Roden?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Very good. Thank you. Next item then is consideration of city council compensation and travel allowance increases. And Ryan Cornell, it looks like you're going to have that item.
Good evening, City Manager, wow, Assistant City Manager. Good evening,
I don't want that
Mr.
job,
Mayor,
that's for sure.
City Council. Man, it's not even 8 o'clock yet. Sorry. Ryan Cornell, Administrative Services Director. I'm here tonight to present to you for your consideration increase in City Council annual or monthly stipends, as well as increases to the pre-authorized travel allowances. Real quick, the council does, as you know, it spends a significant amount of time serving the community in matters of city policy. And as of today, the mayor currently receives $1,400 per month, and the city council members $1,050 per month in recognition of the time that the city council spends on city business. In addition to that, the city council also receives health and welfare benefits. Usually those are consistent with union groups, as well as a vehicle allowance. The government code section allows for city council to increase their compensation 5% per year. The implementation of the wage increase can only take effect at an election. So this is a little bit premature. We're seeking authority to change the ordinance now. The wage increase wouldn't take effect until this upcoming November. But previously, we hadn't updated or increased the city council wages since 2006. So it was kind of a big jump in 2022 when we made that initial adjustment, and it was kind of staff's intention to bring this discussion back every 2 years so that if council wants to increase it, they could so choose and not get so far behind like we did previously. Health and welfare benefits will already be adjusted based on the union group's benefit packages there, so there's no action that council needs to take there. I did review the car allowance and see if any adjustments would be needed there. If we would take the same logic that we did before, the car allowance would increase $5. And so we've included that for this discussion for tonight. But we are recommending that the council does the 10%, the 5% last year, and the 5% this year for a maximum of 10%, so that the city council member stipends would increase by about $150 to $1,155, and the mayor's to $1,504. Should council want to increase a wage beyond that, that would take a ballot measure on the electric for this November. In addition to city council compensation, we also took an examination of the travel authorization. If you remember back in August of 2022, we updated the purchasing policy, which a component of that included updates to the travel and training, which set a pre-approved city council travel limit of $5,000 per year. If a council member were to exceed that amount, they needed to seek pre-council approval before they go on that trip. I put up a chart over here of what the past council members' expenses have been. Obviously, it's been a little all over the map. I think when I was doing this analysis, we're hovering right around $1,500 to $2,500 per trip per council member. And so I know a lot of, all five of you go to the League of California Cities, that's like a guarantee one, but at a $5,000 limit, you're limited really to 2 to 3 opportunities per year. And we kind of looked at actual activity, and we kind of are hovering more probably closer to the 4 to 5 to 6 events per year for some council members, not all council members. And as you can see, there's the actual history there. Ms. Roden, you weren't a council member in 2023, so you don't get to claim that blue one. The late Mayor Markham gets to incur those expenses there. So with that being said, I made a mistake. This recommendation number 1 says adopt draft ordinance. I was supposed to introduce for first reading this draft ordinance. And so we're going to seek direction tonight from council and have discussion. But you're going to see a first reading at the next council meeting and the formal adoption thereafter. The second item for council's consideration is to approve the draft resolution, which updates the purchasing policy so that the yearly pre-authorized travel allowance is $6,000 with a 5% escalator moving forward, so that this is not something we have to bring to council every year. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'd happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ryan. Pro Tem Gregory.
Yeah, Ryan, so the only one I'm concerned about is on the travel, and I don't want to, it appears to me that if you pooled $5,000 for all the council people, that we would never go over that. And that way we don't have that, individuality thing going on. You just have $25,000 of travel expense. And I don't think there's been a year I've been here that's even been close to that. Is that something we could do? I guess it's a legal question maybe too, but that's my suggestion. That way we could leave it at 25,000.
It's more, I guess it's going to come to if there's ever a conflict amongst 2 council members. If we're right up at that cap, if it's $30,000, if we're at 29,000, a city council member wants to go on a travel and training, or 2 council members want to go on travel and training, there might be a conflict at that point. That's, I think, why we originally did 5,000 apiece. But to your point, we could budget as one whole council line item and go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Strong.
Well, speaking of that point, I guess we can't do that, is what you're saying.
No, we can't
create a problem.
We could have a $30,000 budget.
And the interesting thing is, I'm the one who gets to do most of the travel, because I'm the one who goes to all the League of Cities for the California League of Cities. I'm the one who represents us at the National League of Cities. And at both of those places, I'm on committees that help us in various ways. So I'm probably doing more travel because I'm also the delegate to SOLCOG. So I go down there more, etc. Fortunately, if I'm doing anything for them, they pay a bill. We don't. So it doesn't affect us on this. But those things are getting more expensive. And one thing that isn't in this situation is what happened to me just this last trip, where my airline canceled me halfway through the trip. Just canceled the flight. They said, no, we can't get you out for another 2 days. But to be too late to do anything. And would have negated the whole purpose of the trip. So in order to meet the purpose of the trip, I had to buy a ticket and go over my limit. But I couldn't just be stranded in the city with no accommodations, nothing in my budget for a hotel or anything, in a strange city halfway across the country. So this is my difficulty. And I think that's a difficulty with this thing. We do have something in here about pre-approval requirements, which is one of the sections under travel policy and procedures. And that's on page 156 or 152 of the 156. And it's paragraph 3. And it says right in there, council member travel and training expenses in excess of $5,000 requires pre-approval by the city council at a regularly scheduled council meeting. So that can be for any assigned travel that the limit doesn't cover it. And that way, that might cover situations, which can vary tremendously. This year, meetings are being assigned in Washington, D.C. and Atlanta, Georgia. I've got one at the state level that's going to be down in Burbank later this week. Otherwise, it's Sacramento, usually. So all of those are just small travels. But whenever it's a four-day, it's all the travel plus the hotel. And those prices have been escalating, especially if you go into like a city like Washington, D.C. The hotels aren't cheap, especially if you're right there by Capitol Hill. And you don't have any choice if you're going to get your work done and do it right. So I guess I can't make that motion this time. I've been informed. I asked that you consider allowing me to make that motion next time, or bring it up at the next meeting. So it's part of the agenda, maybe when this comes back. Or is that incorrect?
So if you're requesting to have the travel expenses that you incurred specifically addressed, that would be a separate item. That's not on tonight's agenda. On tonight's agenda are modifications to the travel policy.
No, I'm talking about travel policy, so that assigned tasks are not covered by this limit.
That is certainly something you could direct staff. We'd probably have to continue the item and come back with some language to address that.
Well, but he's coming back next week anyway, so.
Well, you could approve this evening. This was noticed properly. It's the first reading of the ordinance. That was a little bit wonky. So, but if you wanted to make a change to this, you could certainly give staff that direction.
Well, yeah, and I think it's as simple as just adding the end of that sentence that pre-assigned meetings aren't included in this pre-authorized limit. I mean, we could add like a caveat to that, but again, that takes the whole.
And then we'd have to define what those assigned meetings are. There have to be some clarification.
Yeah, I think that would be fine.
Yeah, if my recommendation, and this isn't uncommon with other councils, is that they often identify a list of conventions and or trainings that they go to that are automatically included in your travel authorization. Anything beyond that would require council approval to fund and to go to.
That would make sense.
So if the council could agree on, hey, we want to go to the National League of Cities, we want to go to the California League of Cities, those kind of, are automatically pre-approved on an annual basis, you could do that. But that would require a little bit of extra discussion to make sure that's incorporated.
Oh, yeah, but actually those organizations, it's not just the annual meeting. They have multiple meetings sometimes during the year that also are policy meetings.
Those are the kind of things that if there's a baseline that all the council wants to go to, then obviously any of those policy meetings or any of those things would require council approval.
All right. So if, again, just for a discussion, if those kinds of pre-authorized meetings, would that be included in the current 5,000, or if approved the 6,000? I'm not sure I understand how that's working.
So the way I often see it done is there is just a line item for, board or council travel of $50,000. And I'm just making up numbers because it makes my math easy. And it's not assigned necessarily to one particular council member or another. And then you have a list that says if you're going to the League of Cities meeting, if you're going to the National League of Cities meeting, if you're going to these, whatever that list is. Yeah. Those are pre-approved. It just comes out of that line item in the budget. Who's ever going, the city just makes your travel arrangements and off you go. And then if you want to attend a meeting that isn't on that pre-approved list, that would take council authorization, but it would still come out of that same $50,000 adjustment.
Yeah, I can appreciate the $50,000 limit, but to Mr. Cornell's point earlier, is there a cap if we get to the end of the year and there's a meeting that we all want to go to and there's a few $1,000s left? How do we do that? I think there should be a pre-approval if we get to I think once we get, to a, whether it's 5,000 or 6,000 or some other number council decides on, if a single member exceeds that, it should come back for pre-authorization.
But if that's the situation specifically, and we know that we say all want to go to a particular one, that would come to us. We bring that up at a previous meeting and then pre-approve it per this pre-approval requirement. And then it wouldn't be subject to the limit.
You're conflating two issues. So one of the issues is your budget authorization. So if you budget $25,000, $50,000, whatever, and you exceed that, Mr. Cornell would have to come back and get another budget appropriation.
Right.
If you assign each of yourselves 5,000, 6,000, 10,000, whatever number you want, and that number gets exceeded, then he would come back to you for authorization to approve some travel. I would assume it would come forward in the form of everybody wants to go to the Spaceport Conference in DC, and so, if we need this additional amount of funding, something along those lines.
And how would we handle what happened to me in that emergency? Because there's no way to I can't predetermine that the airline's going to cancel me.
Right.
Or strand me.
So your AB 1234 policy requires the city to use a standard of reasonableness, which is what's in your document.
Oh.
So if you are stranded in the middle of nowhere with no hotel, obviously it would be unreasonable for the city to say, sorry, Fred, just hang out in the airport for 2 days. We'll get back to you when we can.
No.
Obviously, you need to make some reasonable accommodations.
So
now,
that's
if you were to
go on to where you're
fly
already
first class and stay at the Ritz-Carlton, we may not find that to be reasonable.
No, but the reasonable thing there would be to get another airline ride to that location where you're already booked in and paid the hotel.
Right. I don't think that's a question. Yeah. Obviously, you need it to move forward.
Right.
But so we just need to draw a line between the two issues. One is a budgeting issue, which was the question I think Mr. Bausch asked.
That is an emergency.
And the other issue is, are you assigning a dollar amount to each person to put into your policy? Is it a group dollar amount? And then how do you want how do you want a pre-approved list to be crafted? And that, I think, if you want to go to that level of specificity, we probably have to come back next time. But we're looking for direction from you guys on how you want to proceed.
So let me ask a question. Again, this is what's kind of at my point when the way I look at this whole thing, as far as the travel especially, is the cost benefit analysis. In other words, by going to this event or this meeting or whatever, how does it benefit the public? Okay. Mm-hmm. And I need to see a complete nexus on how that happens and if we're going to be spending money this way. Just because we want to volunteer for something on a national basis and go there, which is cool, no problem. But do we need to have the taxpayers pay for that? And that's the bottom line. But if it benefits the city somehow and we actually see a nexus where, the city does benefit from that meeting, I have no problem with it at all. But again, all of us like to do a lot of different things, and that's the point. But that's the way I look at it. It's pretty much on your side of your personal time to go out and do those kind of things. But if it's something that we ask you to go and do, represent us and the public from Paso Robles, that's the nexus. That's where I want to make sure that we're agreeing with meetings that we're...
That can be actually confusing. For instance, I'll give you an example. I haven't volunteered for any committees at any of these organizations, but presidents of those organizations have seen my resume and they have appointed me to things. They didn't ask me, they just appointed me.
Yeah, okay, fine.
And now I'm on there representing our city, though.
I know that, but I want to know how that benefits us, Fred.
For the same reasons we even belong to those organizations, because they're out there advocating for us, and I'm there then presenting our specific issues to make sure they're being advocated for.
Okay. Well, again, that's my question. The other question I had was this 5%. Ryan, that's by government statute, but does it have to be 5%? In other words, if inflation's a certain amount over time, I mean, that's a variable, or is that a fixed percentage?
No, it's a flat amount. It's 5% per year.
Wow.
I think you could go less. I'm pretty sure you could always go less.
That's what I would think. That was what I was trying to get at. If inflation's 2% that year, then that's all I would think, to stay level with the whole thing instead of just escalating every time.
But part of the reason they put it at that was they've set us way below minimum wage. They call it a stipend here, but and you look at it in state law, in some places, it's also salary. They interuse the words. That stipend is used as salary. Stipend is sometimes used separately as a stipend. Is differently.
No, in my opinion, public service
is weird how state law conflicts with itself.
I don't think any of us stood for election to make a living doing this.
Exactly, yeah.
That's
all right. I've asked my questions.
Mr. Mayor, maybe, I'm sorry, Mr.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to suggest if what I'm hearing from the council, it's at your pleasure, but we can always bring back, do a little research, come back and bring back a list of, kind of industry standard conventions and or trainings that the council typically, attends. And, based upon what we know about our travel patterns and how much it costs and those kind of things, we can establish a budget based upon those. And then, put a cushion in there so, we don't hopefully run up against that. But then keep that provision in there that says, hey, if there's additional trainings beyond these, that it requires, some sort of approval by the council to get to your heart of your question about whether there's a nexus to city business and our taxpayers, and then the city council can choose to approve them or not.
Exactly. I think that's fair. I mean, at this point, it's a good benefit to the taxpayers. I don't have a problem with it at all. But
need to go to the public.
Yeah, I know. Anybody further questions? Sharon, go ahead.
One question and then one comment. One question is, does the city have to make, or should the city make the reservations, whether it's hotel, flights, whatever, for these?
That's kind of a multi-layered response. So I can tell you what staff's preference would be to have one point of contact make all the reservations. That really helps with the administrative services accounting side of it. It helps with it's like herding cats, no offense, there's 5 of you, and trying to make sure that you're signing the right forms and getting all the information at the right time. It can be a challenge for staff. So our preference would be to be able to have one point of contact, book everything, and work with the individual council members to do that. That being said, I know that there are certain times Mr. Strong has specific travel preferences that he looks for, whether it's, special accommodations to, difficulties traveling and, ground floors, different things that would accommodate his special needs when he travels. So that we do recognize and we do work with him on those, but I can tell you that our preference would be to have it all flow through one person so that we can herd the cats accordingly.
And the other comment was what everybody's kind of hit on. Mr. Strong and I had lunch the other day, and I brought up the same thing. Can you quantify the effects of you going to these meetings? And of course, tell me if I was wrong, but if you're not at the table, you're on the table. So sometimes those things are hard to quantify, but to the mayor's point, if it is a direct help to the city, then I would say yes. If there's, I don't think Mr. Strong's out running around hooping it up and with dancing girls, and,
You haven't seen the photos?
Yeah.
No, there's no such thing.
Been to D.C. over 24 times. I've never been to a national monument or to the Smithsonian.
Well, you need to do that just to be doing that, but okay. Anyone else? Comment here from the council? Open it up to public. Michael.
Michael Rivera, I'm going to shock everybody. I don't think it's a problem for the stipend to be increased. Because really, when you look at it, it's like, for you guys, as council members, $280 a week. I mean, come on. That's, and you don't do this because you're getting paid the big bucks. That's for sure. But as Mr. Strong remembers, I have been a critic of travel. A few years back, I got after Mr. Strong for what I felt was excessive travel. But I like the mayor's idea of what are our outcomes? What are we getting for that travel? Do we really need to be there? We have a pen and a phone. Maybe we have Zoom now. We have all kinds of other ways to connect. I think we should be in our districts looking at what our constituencies' needs are. If you're spending 20 hours a week on this stuff, it's $15 an hour. I mean, come on. I mean, In-N-Out's paying 18. So this is I have no problem with this increase. As a matter of fact, speaking to Mr. Bausch's number about inflation, I mean, for God's sake, you guys are going backwards. Inflation this year is like, what, 30%, depending on what you're buying. So I have no problem with that, but I do have a problem with really drilling down on travel. Not because Mr. Strong is important, I'm sure has things to say in those meetings, and he wants to be present, that's fine. For me, I've been to too many of those, and I know that it's usually irrelevant when it really comes down to it. What really matters is you guys being in your districts, you guys listening to the people, understanding what their needs are. That's what matters. And through that, you will make this city much better, very successful. I love success. I love to see people win. I really do.
Thank you. Anyone else? Jeff?
Yeah, on the travel, I mean, I'll assume all the travel is justified and you're getting good information and you're bringing it back and it's helping the city. But I have to say, I don't think you're communicating that necessarily to the public. I mean, you guys go to meetings a lot of time. I think Fred's probably the most communicative to us about what he's doing at these meetings. But I don't think the public hears a lot about it. I mean, the ones that kind of rub me the long way is when you go en masse. I mean, you go to I think it was Cal Cities, you suddenly, I don't think you ever went to those for a long time, and now you seem to be going, everybody goes. And that's fine if there's enough going on there that you can split up and that's all good information. But maybe you ought to bring it back so we can understand that a little better. Because that's, I guess from my point of view and others I talk to, we go, what the heck are they doing out there? So I think you could do a little bit better on showing us the benefit of these trips. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Francisco.
Francisco Ramirez. I also tend to agree with my colleague earlier that you guys do need the increase on that. I totally agree on that. But I also, to Councilman Strong's point, everybody's pointing at him, but there is a bit of, if you're out of sight, you're out of mind. And if we don't have representation at these different locations, different states, national levels, then we are not going to be partaking in certain things that can benefit us locally here. That I do see, and I know because I do a lot of traveling myself. If you're not there, if you're not visible, you're out of sight, you're out of mind, and you might not be able to see an opportunity that came about or certain grants that were discussed there, then you can say, you know what, we can benefit of that. We can write for that. Come back, and say, this was offered, this is available. We can totally use that in our community.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public? Anyone online? Okay. All right, we'll bring it back to council then for discussion and or action. Pro Tem Gregory.
So, Elizabeth, you want two different actions? Okay, so I'll make an easy motion on number one. I move that we adopt the draft ordinance increasing mayor.
Hang on. Right.
Nope, you're going to provide direction to staff to bring back the ordinance because it needed to be noticed for a first reading instead of
Oh, it's
adoption.
all the same ordinance?
Well, the one's an ordinance, and then the second item is the resolution on the travel policy.
Okay, so they both need to be brought back together?
They don't have to come back together, but the ordinance needs to be brought back with proper noticing. And then the second one, if you want to make changes other than what's been proposed, we need some direction.
Okay. So bring back for the first reading to adopt the draft ordinance increasing mayor and city council members' salary to $1,540 and $1,155 respectively.
Motion by Gregory, second by Strong. Discussion. Okay, we'll call for that question.
Just, excuse me, Melissa, so this is just to bring it back for the next reading?
It's just a direction.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
No.
Councilmember Roden?
Yes.
And Mayor Hammond?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay, so I'm just going to throw this out there and you guys do what you want with it. I think we should make it a pool of money, be a lot easier for our staff. $30,000, go from 25 to 30, and then just let people submit, the staff either make the reservations for us, or if an individual needs extra attention, then he requests the funding for it. We're not going to spend anywhere close to that, so I think that would cover it, and I think it would simplify the process, but I'm willing to listen to other people's ideas.
So motion by Gregory, I'll second for discussion. The point, though, you're saying that that pot of money can be used for any reason, or is it still going to be scrutinized as to what we're doing?
No, just stay with the same standard, that is, everything is qualified.
Okay, all right.
And this is going to be brought back, or is it going to come back that way? Can I do it that way?
And so this is going to have to be written and brought back, I believe, isn't it?
I don't know.
Elizabeth?
So I think I'm a little confused on what the direction is that you want us to either approve tonight or bring back. You want to increase it to 30,000.
Right.
Take out the $5,000 or $6,000 per person.
Right.
Are we approving a list of pre-approved items?
I don't know how we do it now. I don't believe that's how we do it now,
That
is
is
it?
not how you do it now. Currently, grab your policy.
Tell me how we do it now. We'll do it the same way.
So currently it says, do travel and training for city council members does not require pre-approval as long as it does not exceed $5,000 if $6,000 was staff recommendation. But that wouldn't be the case if we go with what you proposed. It would just be something along the lines of travel and training for council members does not require pre-approval. The council will have a budget of $30,000 per year. And then and then the next sentence is council member travel and training expenses in excess of $5,000 require pre-approval. But I'm not clear if we want that sentence to remain in.
I think we want pre-approval on everything, don't we?
Yeah, well, again, we're trying to bump up per council member to 6,000, but I still want to see some sort of a discussion amongst council that money would be spent in a certain way.
So every trip I've been on, I've never touched the money or made reservations. The staff did it for me.
No, I still agree with that we should always go through one person. That staff is really the way it works. But I'm talking about the fact that if there's a council member that wants to do a certain meeting somewhere, and we want to make sure that it's going to be
city manager approval.
No, council approval. That's what I'm trying to get at. Brett?
Okay, well, sometimes we don't understand things. For 20 years now, all my meetings have been approved. All of them. That means, they've all been approved.
By who?
Let's put it this. I've gotten the money.
By who?
Expense money.
Who approved it?
Well, the city. I don't know. I think it was the administration. I don't think it ever came to council. But either the city manager or the city administrative services, whoever it was, But it was never even questioned, because whenever it's a virtual meeting, I go virtually. I don't go in person. So there's a number of meetings I go to virtually. And it doesn't cost the city anything.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
Fred, I believe you. We don't need to, you don't need to explain this. It's the process that we're talking about. I have 100% faith in what you're doing.
But there's
I just
no
try to
way
make
to
it easy.
quantify necessarily, to quantify exactly, specifically what we're getting on any particular meeting. Sometimes it's a process.
I
Do
understand.
you have a schedule that we could pre-approve?
Sure.
Okay. I think that's where we're going, is that we want the ability to pre-approve the travel.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm
Next year is going to be much
understanding?
less than this year, because national organizations, they bounce around from East Coast, West Coast, Center, North, South.
What do you have to say?
I was going to
Coach.
say, if you want, we can bring back a list of the travel that, council members have had for the last 5 years, 3 years, 2 years. And if you want, you can build something off of that, if that's what you want to do. Otherwise, you can leave it at the 30,000 per year, and council members, it depends on the level of control that you guys want to exert over the process is what's going to dictate this. It's pretty wide and open and expansive right now. The question is, do you want it more restrictive or not?
So my point in this whole idea is that really, to be fair, every council member has $6,000 of travel. If I don't use but 1,000 of it, I don't mind using the rest of it as needed for another council member if they need to go someplace. But that would be something of a discussion of the council, not just an authority given, from the staff. That's my whole point. If we can get language in there somehow that would allow us to kind of control a particular amount over the 6,000, that's what I'm trying to understand, how we can.
And I would agree with that, Mayor Hammond. I think that's a good point. And Fred, this isn't anything against you personally. We're going to have other people come after us that may not be so respectful of the process. So I think Mr. Hammond's point is very well taken. I don't think anybody would begrudge that approval, especially if there's remaining money in whatever that amount is.
So we put a provision in there for anything over $6,000 spent by a city council person has to be approved by council.
Correct. And not to exceed kind of an
That
amount
solves that
for the whole council of 30,000.
We're still bringing back.
So
this is coming back.
So the way I heard this was $6,000 per council member. Anything in excess of $6,000, it requires council approval to move forward.
A pool of 30,000.
Well, that's, if it's 6,000 per person, that's
just leave it like
that's,
that. Okay.
times 5 is
Try to keep it
30,000.
simple as we can.
Yeah.
Okay, keep it
So
simple.
are we still going to have for the 6,000, are we still going to have a list that's been cultured from previous travel?
It's up to you. Up to you. With 6,000, it's, leaves it at the discretion of the council member.
I think that's a good idea to have that way. It's
Customary things that we've always gone to, which is, I think, important.
right.
Of course, value of those customary meetings are going to be up and down anyway.
And then an appendix with those travel. I'll leave that to you.
Where it's going or how far away. So.
Well, and in all fairness too, speaking to this whole, kind of concept is that what you're proposing provides as the city manager, I feel very uncomfortable at times trying to decide, as Fred put it, whether I should approve somebody's travel or not. A little bit beyond my purview and scope. Bringing it back to you in those situations where someone appoints a member to something, it's a little unfair for them to spend our taxpayer dollars as well without consideration of whether the council wants to do that. So that provides you with that option to say, hey, I was approached, they want me to act in this capacity. It will require travel 3 times a year, 4 times a year to be able to satisfy my duties. Is that something the council wants to do? And you can handle it in one-off fashion that way.
Brett, I would say this, I probably should bring it up now because I might have to have this on the agenda then. And that is the next national meeting, which I'm already prepaid for on the registration, is in Atlanta, Georgia in June. So it's before the next budget period. It's definitely going to take me way over the 6,000 for this year. But the following year, that Atlanta meeting is going to be in Long Beach. So it's going to be almost nothing compared to that.
Good drive there, all right.
Yeah, so those are the difficulties with some of this.
Yeah, understood. And that's why I want the ability to massage or push money from another council member to cover you. That's how we'll do it. I think it's fair to the public and, again, all of us too, so. Okay, so enough direction then, Elizabeth, I hope.
So I think what we're hearing is $6,000 per council member is approved. Unless you want to go over that, then that would require a separate action by the council. And we're going to come back to you with a list of the most commonly attended, whatever we want to call it, conferences and things for you to peruse and pre-approve.
Great. Maker, no, second.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want me to make the motion again, or?
You understand pretty much?
I think you can just
What
say
she
you're going to
said.
make the motion that I just stated.
And I'll second
And
that.
Melissa will
He's gonna
record it
second it.
beautifully.
I seconded for discussion in the beginning, so okay, we're good to go. All right, let's call for the question, Melissa.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Roden?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Very good. Thank you, guys. All right. That brings us down to city manager report. Mr. Ty Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few items to update council on. As everybody is aware, we have been talking budget. We've been talking roads. Today, I was able to attend with Mr. Bausch and Mr. Gregory, the Travel Paso board meeting, to provide an update along with Frida and Chris Hewitt regarding E12 and roads and what's happening there. We're doing that again for the Fair Board tomorrow. And then on Friday, we're talking with coffee with the city manager at the Patina Room, which is at the Calcoast Brewery, 7:30 a.m. And then, as was mentioned by Francisco, we have the consulate visiting Friday or Saturday and Sunday, 8 a.m. to noon. Both those days for anybody that's interested. I'm going to be out there to observe as well. And then last, I know it was mentioned a couple times regarding parking, and I hate to poke a bear, but I just want to honor Donna King. She's leaving the city to go to work for the city of SLO as their parking manager. So she's, spent more than, I think, close to a couple decades working for the city in a few different capacities, from dispatcher to records clerk to community service officer to records to evidence, and really given a lot to the community. And so I just wanted to make sure she got a special recognition. We're going to be sending her off with a little going away party tomorrow, but wanted to make sure that the council was aware of that and her contribution. City of San Luis will be getting an excellent employee from the city. And that ends my report.
Okay, thank you very much, Ty. Council business and committee reports. Start with Sharon.
I attended the Parks and Rec committee meeting. One of the issues that I know that was brought up was some of the vandalism and misuse of electrical connections with lights over in Larry Moore Park. They're addressing some of those issues, and we discussed also perhaps the need of security cameras in some of the parks and whatnot to hopefully keep some of that down. I also had meetings with a few individuals who offer services there at the airport, kind of getting their take on some of the challenges and the pluses and minuses of their businesses out there.
Okay. Fred?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to try to keep it a little bit short, but there's a lot I don't say about these meetings because I give that information to staff, whoever's the appropriate staff to give it to, rather than to the council. So I was actually asked to go and make a speech at this one. I was appointed to make a speech nationally at the National League of Cities in Washington, D.C., because it turns out in their organization, I am the only member who is a registered, and has been for over half a century, a registered lobbyist in Washington, D.C., and who has been successful and knows the lobbying ropes. So I was asked to speak to them about what is the proper way to lobby in Washington DC, the do's and don'ts, how you get things done versus how you might get one thing done and then you're no longer welcome because you hung them out to dry by not giving them all the information they should have had, and different things of that. I gave you a copy of the speech I made, and they started out by putting me actually in just a two-person panel on the history of the National League of Cities, because it was their 100th anniversary year. This is their 100th anniversary. And they were the creator. They, along with NACO, which is the National Organization for Counties, created the National Organization for all the regional governments in the United States. And I am now their appointed representative on the board of directors for the National Organization for all the regional governments in the United States. And through those organizations, I serve on the transportation and infrastructure committees of both. But at the regional one, I am the chairman and have been for almost 18 years now. So I helped write the last two infrastructure bills, bipartisan infrastructure bills. But at the conference, there were other people who spoke, and I'd leave that for you to peruse at your leisure, so that you can look over what I had to say, if you're interested. The photos I gave you, I took there. Yes, I was that close to the President of the United States. No, he did not talk to me or anybody else individually. And I had 8 servicemen between me and him. And I was not about to move out of my seat or do anything unusual in that situation. The second picture you see is myself with Congressman Carbajal. And I was one of the only 4 people that he approved to come and see him privately at that conference. And we had a nice conference before his program. And it was very interesting because he was joined, the following picture, by a Republican congressman who was a former general in the Air Force and who is a member of the opposite party. And they were speaking to all of us, and we got to chat with both of them. And they're going to be working on some of our infrastructure for us, trying to get some of our money for us, especially for Union Road. That's one of the things they're going to work on. And also, we are making initial moves to have the money sent directly to the jurisdiction involved in actually doing the project, rather than having it come through like the state or a region, which sometimes takes an administrative fee out of it and doesn't leave us with as much money as we need. So that's another thing we're initiating, we're getting started. But you have to build coalitions, you have to build the votes. And the interesting thing, and the reason they're speaking there, is because they just created a new caucus that is now an approved congressional caucus. And it's one that got cheers and applause like crazy, like I've never heard nationally, when they now have just created the first bipartisan caucus of the Congress. And they are getting many, many congressmen are joining the bipartisan caucus to try to diminish the extremes that currently exist in Washington, D.C. And I applaud them along with everybody else who did applaud them. It's a marvelous effort, and I pray they're very successful in what they're trying to do. So also, of course, along with Councilman Bausch, we attended the youth committee and also the library advisory. And I'm going to let him give most of those reports because I've talked long enough about what I did nationally. I did bring back, and I still have to talk with Frida and some other people about boot camps. They're free, being offered by the National League of Cities, and they are about 3 or 4 day things. You have to travel there and travel back, but it is to train them with people who come from the federal government agencies on grants, what's there, what's coming up, and what the do's and don'ts of how to get your grant approved. And you can't have better training than have the ones who are doing the approval telling you how to best get your grant approved. And so that's one of the things. I've got 6 different boot camps approximately that are available in various areas. So I'll be sharing that with our people, and then it's up to them who wants to go and who they want to send and how they want to do it. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Councilman Bausch.
So as council member Strong alluded to, I attended the Youth Commission meeting. They are going to start recruiting. So just if you know anybody that is interested in being on our youth commission, I think we start accepting applications from freshmen on up through 21-year-olds that may be attending Aquesta. Also attended Virginia Peterson Elementary, got to read in Mrs. Harris's class. So thank you, Principal Parfumi and Mrs. Harris. Challenge anybody that's asked to participate in Read Across America or any kind of a Dare Day. It's always very well worth it. Some good habits just die hard. You got to do that. As mentioned earlier, met with Mayor Hammond and City Manager Lewis. And then the following Monday, Senior Citizen Advisory Committee, Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, the San Luis Obispo County Office of Education District Organization meeting, and then finally a Paso Robles Downtown Main Street Board meeting. Met with Paso Robles Housing Authority Board meeting. We have a lot of stuff trying to get into the pipeline, but it is certainly a challenge to try to get any kind of affordable housing going. Had the Chamber of Commerce Governmental Affairs Committee meeting that seems to be getting going again after COVID. It's all by Zoom, but definitely learn a lot of interesting things. The Paso Robles Library Advisory Board meeting, and I have to hats off to Eric. He actually makes library meetings very exciting. So we've got some great staff. Our outreach program is going really well. I'm very excited to see that program and to support its success, and hope the rest of the board does as well, our council does as well. Earlier today, met with the Paso Robles Nonprofit Housing Corporation, otherwise known as Chet Daughter Senior Housing. Great group of folks up there. And then finally, as City Manager Lewis talked, the Travel Paso Board meeting, that organization does a lot of great work. I was going through the Wall Street Journal the other night, ran across one of their ads. It was a great ad. Working with other organizations, they've got a great board and just very appreciative of all that they do. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Pro Tem Gregory.
Yep. Yeah, I met with Chris and the Travel Paso board, and I agree, very amazing performance on their part. Then I met with two of the people that have businesses at the airport for the same purpose that Sharon did. I do have a question tonight that's going to be kind of difficult for Ty to answer, but I got to ask. How are we supposed to give San Luis County an answer on their 1.5 cent program when it's due on the 1st of April?
Yeah, we need to put it on an agenda. I think that the easiest way is you have a voting delegate there, and advising your voting delegate how you want them to vote would be the easiest way to do it.
So do we need to have that as an agenda item to vote on it?
What direction?
Can I request that?
And I'm currently your voting delegate, anyway. Yeah. And I have told them no, if, in fact, they are going to have it on with us at the same time. And between us.
Again, the matter, it's not on our agenda for tonight, so.
Can't talk about it.
I'm just, can't I put, it's part of my report of what I've done?
If it's a meeting you've attended, yes.
Oh, I can't say what I did at the meeting?
Yes, you can describe
That's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is what I did at the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I told them I cannot support this as long as it will take us over the cap, because it's my understanding that theirs would supersede ours. Theirs would take priority and ours would be canceled. So if they'd get their increase, we wouldn't get ours. Can I tell them what they told me back? as part of the meeting?
I would suggest that we agendize this so you can have a robust, unfettered conversation about it. And then you could, be unambiguously make a decision on where you want to go.
Yeah.
Well, what
I may have an answer, but I'm not totally happy with the answer.
Yep.
What I was going to recommend, Fred, and again, this is important when an individual on our council represents the whole council, is that we should, talk to our city manager, get a good polling on what the majority of the council wishes to do, not just that one individual that sits there. You see, we've had discussion over the years about this, and whenever there's something big and something really important, I'm always going to refer back to the whole council to get their thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So that's why I think individually we all speak with our city manager. He's the hub. He can get back to you with what the majority of the council wants to do. Probably easier than agendizing, but whatever.
If you'd like, council members, I know they want to come back for one more bite at the apple. So maybe we can coordinate your action or your discussion with their return, so that way they get an opportunity to update you with any additional information that they potentially have. And then right on the heels of that presentation, we can schedule your discussion, and then you can make a decision on how you want to direct Mr. Strong or whatever correspondence you want to send back to SlowCog on the matter.
Okay.
Does that work?
That work for you, Councilman Berger?
I don't know that we need to wait that long, but certainly something to discuss.
That might be fair.
And just to be clear, you can provide guidance to your delegate, but he does sit there in an independent capacity. So you can provide him with your thoughts and concerns, comments, and guidance, but the decision that for what he casts as a vote at that meeting will be his alone.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that, because we can't know in advance what else is going to come up at that meeting. But new information or other suggestions are going to be made that then I have to look for the best interests of our city. But always I'm looking for the best interests of our city, as well as for the region, because I have to be there in a regional capacity as well, simultaneously.
Okay. Is that all you had, Steve?
That's it.
Okay.
Just for clarification, that's the plan, bring it back in coordination with their next scheduled visit for the council?
When's that going to be?
When is their next visit?
Mr. Hewitt, I think you have the date, right? Is it April? April 16th, I want to say.
I believe they were shooting for the second meeting in April.
So we could have a meeting or bring this back to the first meeting in April.
April 2nd, right? But that's when they really wanted to hear from us too, is the first.
Yeah, I know that they have another engagement I was just looking at, I believe they were doing this same presentation with the city of Atascadero and the county supervisors on April 9th. And so I say that because they're still in discussion mode. So April 2nd, we could have that internal discussion, or we could wait until they come back. I think that's, again, the prerogative of the council.
Or April 2nd, I think, just in case we can't come to a decision, we can table it to the next meeting. I think the 2nd is recommended.
Let's shoot for that. I would like to. It's what they were kind of asking for.
Then I think we go.
Yes.
Yeah. And if I may too, in their presentation, it looks like May 1st is when the SlowCog board will consider approving or denying the final implementation plan. And then they also have a May note that all jurisdictions will consider approving or denying the final implementation plan. So that's at least what they outlined in their presentation that you saw earlier today.
I think they were also waiting for some polling that they were doing too, wasn't there? Yeah, they were trying.
Yeah, I think they said the first week of April.
Right. Okay, very good. Items I had county-wise was just the integrated waste management meeting we did. Upcoming events, we have the Paso Robles Development Review Committee, March 25th, 3:30. Paso Robles Planning Commission, March 26th at 6:30. Paso Robles Development Review Committee, again, April Fool's Day, April 1st, 3:30. And then we have the Paso Robles City Council meeting back here, like we said, on April 2nd. Also, Council, we have the Chamber of Commerce Annual Gala Awards event this Saturday. Is everybody still planning on going? Okay, we'll see you there. And so I would also like to adjourn this meeting in memory and thinking of Donna King, wishing her well in all of her career advancements that she's doing. She's certainly young and got a long way to go, but again, we definitely wish her the best and all the service that she did for us as far as the city. So I'd like to make that motion. Second by Gregory. All in favor? Aye. We're stand adjourned.
You gotta kill that.